river was born where the quiet hearts break, from clouds that carried more sorrow than rain. It slipped through the valleys of memory and ache, a silver thread woven with whispers of pain. It started as tears no one wanted to show, hidden in lashes, too heavy to keep, falling like secrets the night came to know, sinking in silence too guarded and deep. Mountains had heard every cry ever made. Echoes of heartbreak still clung to their side. Snow turned to water, and slowly it strayed, becoming the river where lost sorrows hide. It moved like a thought you can never outrun, cold as the truth that you tried to ignore, carving through places the daylight had shunned, knocking on memory's unlatched door. Each ripple carried a story untold, fragments of voices the world left behind, dreams that grew weary, hopes that grew old, and promises fate had refused to be kind. It passed through a forest of almost an if, where trees wore the names of the ones who had gone. Leaves fell like moments, so fragile, so brief, proof that the night always follows the dawn. But this dawn was pale, with a tremble of gray, light without warmth, like a smile made of glass. The river kept taking the colors away, turning bright futures to shadows that pass. On its banks sat a boy with a storm in his chest, skipping small stones made of words left unsaid, each one a memory he never confessed, each splash a sentence he buried instead. He watched how the current swallowed them whole, how circles of silence grew wide then were gone, just like the dreams that once lived in his soul, just like the nights he kept crying till dawn. Further along stood a woman in white, dress made of letters she never received, hands full of sorry, and maybe, and might, eyes full of love she had quietly grieved. She dipped her fingers in water so cold, hoping to wash off the ache of goodbye. But pain, like a story too often retold, stays in the heart even when tears run dry. The river remembered each touch, every face. It never forgot what the world threw away. It carried them all in its endless embrace, a moving graveyard of yesterday. Bridges stood over it, sturdy and tall, built out of logic and reasons and time. People crossed over, pretending not all wounds leave a mark or a reason to rhyme. But sometimes at midnight, when noise disappears and courage grows thin in the dark of one's room, they'd hear the faint sound of their uncried tears flowing below in the river of gloom. An old man once followed it, step after slow step, leaning on memories carved in his cane. Every regret that his silence had kept rose like a ghost from the river of pain. He saw his young self in the shimmer and sway, chasing ambitions that faded too fast, friends he had promised he'd never betray, love he had traded for shadows that passed. He called out a name that the wind could not hold. It fell in the water and broke into rings. Time, like the river, is ruthless and cold. It buries both crowns and the fall of all kings. Still the river moved, never asking for rest, fed by the hearts that were breaking upstream. Every new sorrow it took to its chest, blurring the line between memory and dream. Children threw laughter like petals one day, running along where the soft grasses bend. But even their joy, as it drifted away, fell in the current and met with its end. For nothing escaped its slow gathering flow, not even the smiles that once felt so bright. Happiness, too, when it's lost, you should know, turns into pain in the hush of the night. Storms sometimes raged, making waves sharp and wild. Lightning revealed all the depths underneath. Faces long gone, every woman and child, all made of longing and trembling grief. Then came the calm, like a lie softly told, surface so smooth it pretended to heal. But deep in the dark where the water ran cold, rested the things we refused to feel. A girl with a diary torn at the seam sat by its edge with a pen out of ink, writing her fears in the folds of a dream, watching the words drift away as she'd think. If pain is a river, then where is its sea? Where does it end? Where does sorrow go? The water replied in a voice she could see. In hearts that have loved and still let it flow. She closed her eyes, let her questions dissolve, dropped her last page in the trembling tide. Some wounds, she learned, we don't ever resolve. We just learn how to carry them quietly inside. Night after night, under moon's broken light, the river kept telling its endless refrain. A song made of loss, of wrong and of right. a lullaby sung in the language of pain. Yet somewhere far off, beyond what we see, past cliffs of despair and the canyon of cries, the river grows tired of what it must be, of carrying only the weight of goodbyes. It dreams of a place where the waters turn warm, where sorrow dissolves in a wider embrace, where tears lose their salt, where hearts can transform, where pain is not prison, but passage to grace. So still it flows on through the night and the years, through cities of silence and deserts of blame, made out of heartbeats and unshed tears, forever a river, forever the same. And if you stand quiet where memory bends, and listen beyond what the loud world proclaims, you might hear the place where your own sorrow blends into that river that knows all our names. It curved past a town made of windows and light, where people wore smiles like masks at a play. Their laughter rang loud in the warm yellow night, but shadows behind them had something to say. In kitchens still bright with the clatter of plates, in bedrooms where silence lay heavy and wide, the river slipped in through invisible gates, collecting the tears they refused to confide. A mother stood still by a half-open door, her child fast asleep with a fist by his cheek. She counted the breaths like she had done before, each one a prayer she was too tired to speak. Bills on the table like mountains of stone, dreams folded small in a box on a shelf. She felt in her chest a chill she had known, the ache of giving and losing herself. One silent tear down a face brave and worn fell to the floor with no witness around. But pain has a map of where hearts are torn. The river arrived without making a sound. It touched that small drop and welcomed it in. Another soft story it carried away. Proof that not all of our battles we win. Proof that some nights never turn into day. Beyond the town where the streetlights grew thin, a soldier walked roads that were empty of peace. War still alive in the echoes within, though all of the gunfire outside had ceased. Medals like moons on a uniform chest, glory that glittered but never could warm. He stood by the river, too tired to rest, a man who had weathered too many a storm. Faces he lost flickered there in the flow, calling his name from the shimmer below. He whispered, "I'm sorry," too broken and low, to boys who were young in the long-ago glow. His words hit the water and shattered like glass. Regret is a weight no river can hide. The current grew deeper as moments would pass, for grief is a thing that the brave cannot outride. Further it wandered through fields left behind, houses with paint slowly peeling away, windows like eyes that had once been kind, now empty of laughter, of voices, of day. An old wooden swing moved back and forth slow, though no one had touched it for years that had gone. The wind pushed it gently like memories flow, a ghost of a childhood still quietly drawn. The river paused there, if rivers can pause, listening close to the creak of the chain. Every place lost leaves a permanent cause, feeds the deep course of the river of pain. It flowed under bridges of, "I'm doing fine," past signs that read strong, in bold painted lies, through valleys where people stood straight in a line, while storms of collapse swirled behind steady eyes. It carried heartbreaks that never made sound, love letters burned before they were read, apologies lost, never finally found, conversations we rehearsed but never said. A poet once came with ink-stained hands, kneeling to study the sorrowful stream. He dipped in his pen like one who understands that pain is the root of the deepest dream. He wrote of the river, its cold silver thread, how it stitched all humans in shared silent ache, how tears for the living and tears for the dead fall in the same water we all have to take. He asked the river, "Why never run dry? Why endless the grief that you gather and keep?" The water replied with a soft, ancient sigh, "As long as hearts love, they will also weep. For pain is the shadow that love always casts, the echo that proves something mattered and was, the scar on the present left there by the past, the quiet reminder of fragile because, yet deep in its current, unseen by most eyes, were glimmers like stars in the folds of the night, moments of courage, of unheard goodbyes, of people who broke, yet still chose to fight. A hand reaching out when its own world had cracked, a word said in kindness when anger was near, a soul who kept walking though hope had been sacked, a heart that kept loving in spite of its fear. These, too, the river carried along, not only the darkness, not only despair, for even in pain there is something strong, a proof that the heart is still living in there. And somewhere ahead, though hidden from sight, the river grows wider, the current grows slow, where day starts to lean into gentler light, and burdens grow lighter the farther they go. For pain is a river we all must cross through. No life stands forever untouched by its rain, but those who keep walking, though broken in two, may find on the far side a shore after pain. Still it flows on through the chambers of years, through ruins of almost and gardens of used to, made out of heartbeats and salt made of tears, carrying me and carrying you. So when in the night you feel heavy and small, like sorrow has swallowed the sound of your name, remember, you're not walking alone through it all. We all share the banks of this river of pain. And maybe one day, when the journey is done, when hearts lay their burdens like stones in the rain, we'll look back and see how together we run as drops in the same endless river of pain. Past the bend where the willows lean low, their branches like fingers that comb through the tide, the river grew darker, more thoughtful in flow, as if even water had something to hide. Mist hovered soft like a half-formed regret, blurring the edges of what once was clear. Places we try very hard to forget rose from the surface and quietly drew near. There drifted a promise with corners worn thin. "I'll stay," it had said in a voice warm and true, but time, like a thief with a patient grin, had stolen the always we thought that we knew. A ring with no fingers sank into the deep, gold catching moonlight one last silver spark. Love does not vanish. It changes its sleep, breathing as memory there in the dark. The river passed under a sky split in two, half full of stars, half empty and bare, just like a heart that once perfectly knew joy, and then learned what it means to despair. On one rocky bank sat a girl made of sighs, hugging her knees like she might disappear. Whole conversations lived back in her eyes, all of the things she wished someone would hear. She had been strong for too many long days, a pillar for others, a light in their storm, but even the sun, in its burning blaze, sometimes just wants to be quiet and warm. Her tears fell slowly, one drop at a time, not loud, not wild, not begging for aid, just small, honest truths with no rhythm or rhyme, the kind that fall when pretending has frayed. The river received them with infinite care, no judgment, no question of why or of when, for pain does not measure, compare, or declare. It simply says, "You are human again." Further downstream where the cliffs opened wide, echoes of laughter from long ago rang. Memories live like the pull of the tide, returning in waves with a familiar pang. Two shadows once walked where the water now runs, fingers entwined in a careless embrace. They had been certain of forevers and ones, certain that nothing could take that place. But words like sharp stones had been thrown in between. Pride built a wall where a door could have stood. Now only reflections of what might have been shimmered and broke in the slow-moving flood. The river remembers what people let die, not to accuse, not to hold them in blame, but to carry the truth that we often deny. Love and its loss are the same burning flame. Night deepened still, and the current grew wise, moving with patience that only time knows. Pain, like the dark, can be full of surprise. It's where hidden strength and strange tenderness grows. For here in the depths where the cold waters stay, are pieces of selves we were forced to outgrow, versions of us that we lost on the way, people we were long ago. A fearless child with impossible dreams, a hopeful heart untouched by goodbye. They drift there too in soft silver streams, not truly gone, just learning to fly. The river does not only take, it transforms. Sorrow dissolves into something more wide, like rain that once fell in chaotic storms becoming a sea where new wonders reside. What feels like an ending, a breaking, a fall, is sometimes the shape of a doorway unseen. Pain is a voice that speaks to us all, saying, "You're changing from what you have been." And somewhere ahead, though no map shows where, the river grows quiet, the waters grow clear, the weight in the current turns lighter than air, and grief loosens slowly its grip on our fear. For pain is a teacher with difficult ways. It strips us of illusions we once held tight, but leaves in our hands, after long aching days, a deeper compassion, a gentler sight. So still it flows on through the chambers of souls, through cities of memory, valleys of ache, carrying fragments, unfinished roles, all that we lose and all that we make. And if you should stand where your own tears begin, feeling too tired to carry the strain, know this, your sorrow is not just within, it flows with the world in the river of pain. Not to drown you, not to pull you below, but to remind you, wherever you've been, to hurt is to prove that your heart can still glow, that feeling deeply is where life begins. One day, perhaps, when the journey is through, when night lays its stars on the fields of the past, you'll see how the river that once carried you was shaping your spirit, vast and steadfast. Till then it will murmur through all that you face, through losses you whisper and fears you explain. A silver, unending, human embrace, the endless, shared river of pain.